If someone asks you, what could make you happy? What would you answer? The answer could cover a wide range of possibilities, which can include topics such as money, relationship, family, a new job, a new house, a new car, health, etc. Just for the discussion, the answer is I want more money. Let's say something happens and the money arrives in the amount that was requested. That of course will generate a feeling of happiness. Just out of curiosity, how long will that feeling of happiness last? What produced that feeling that we can call it joy or happiness? In addition, something to keep in mind is that that feeling is not going to last indefinitely. What makes that feeling fade over time? Eventually, somehow we will have the urge to go out in search of the next thing that brings us happiness. It seems that we are always in search of something external, which will bring us joy, or a state of happiness. Astrology teaches us that everything is movement, and that movement is not linear, but circular. We all see our life in a straightforward path, but it is not, it is circular. For better understanding the concept, let us picture this for a moment. If we wanted to go around the earth, we can go in any direction following a straight line, and beyond that, we would cross cities, rivers, seas and mountains, and we would return to the same place from where we started. The earth is spherical. Our perception would tell us that we traveled in a straight line, but in reality, we circled the circumference of the earth. In similar way, our life develops, and astrology mentions this in the planetary cycles through which we travel life. This circular cycle of life, expressed by astrology, can also be represented as the machine of a mechanical watch, which is composed of a number of gears moving at different speeds. Each gear working in relation to the others, rotating at different speeds with a single purpose. The movement of the gears is predetermined, and this allows us to know the position of each part of the gear at all times, both for the future and for the past. To cite some of the cycles in astrology, it is worth mentioning the Moon 28 days, the Sun 365 days, Jupiter 12 years, Saturn 29 years, Pluto 240 years. If we imagine the clock's machine, the Moon is a very small gear, which is the one that rotates the fastest, while Pluto is the largest in the apparatus and moves very slowly. All these gears are going to be in constant motion in a coordinated way. This is how our solar system works, and possibly other systems and galaxies. Now let us look at the human body. The human body is in constant motion, even if we are laying on a deck chair. Each cell in our body vibrates at a certain frequency, same as each organ vibrates at a certain frequency, all in coordination. Our heart generates a magnetic field, vibration, that is unique, and a person can be identified by this magnetic field, just like a fingerprint. We are a lot more than we can see or feel. Our brain is in permanent operation, whether we are awake or asleep, generating waves that go from delta to gamma. These waves can be measured, beyond if we realize that they are present, and that they vary depending on our state. Although we see things static and solid, everything is in constant vibration as determined by the principles of physics and quantum mechanics. The Earth generates the Schumann frequency, and the different celestial bodies have their particular frequency. It is worth remembering that these are affecting us or interfering with our functioning, regardless of whether we realize it or not. If we want to understand how we operate, we must change many of our beliefs, which are mainly based on our five senses. There is much more unacknowledged activity interacting with us than what our five senses perceive. All this activity can condition and affect us in different ways. Returning to the theme that makes us happy, the state of joy is manifested in the body by a certain level of brain activity, frequency, which is present in a certain part of the brain, with the consequent chemical reaction in the body, which was activated in the case we mentioned, for having received the money we wanted. That is to say, an external influence such as having received the money we wanted, generated a sequence of events in the body, which made us feel in a certain way. In reality, happiness is nothing more than a chemical reaction in the body, which in turn increases our energy field and all that that implies. For those who have any doubt that this is the case, just think why people use cocaine, and what the effect on the body is. In the case of cocaine, this is the external element, which, upon entering the bloodstream, triggers a series of reactions in the brain and manifests throughout the body, having as a consequence a certain state of mind. The problem of substance dependency occurs because simply the modification of the normal functioning of the body by an external agent, such as the drug in this case, creates an instantaneous stimulation that is difficult to replace with something else. This just to clarify that our state of mind is modified simply by the intervention of an external agent, which we can process with our five senses or not, that interferes with our mental and physical functioning. Now we are going to enter a terrain, where the definitions may or may not conflict with your belief system. The universe works and evolves for the simple reason that there is what we can know as equilibrium. Evolution is natural as long as there is balance. Balance does not refer to maintaining a balance with equal weights on both sides of the scale as something static, but simply that the energies in constant movement are in balance. The energies that we can define as positive or negative are in a permanent balance. We also know them as yin and yang, light and dark, and so many other definitions that identify the same thing. If a positive energy was generated at any given time, it will have to be balanced with a negative one in order to keep the balance. If something wins, something loses, the result is always zero. Returning to the drug issue, whoever remains energized by the drug is generating a positive energy in their body, which at some point will have to be level. A certain energy level could be maintained only by continuing to consume, but when the drug is not present, energy compensation arrives, which can be represented in depression, aggression, and all the disorders associated with the lack of external stimulus. Let us not forget that the balance of any action will always be zero, that is, neutral. Everything works based on that principle. We are talking about energy, where each part generates its own, both positive and negative, and this is manifested both with the environment, people, and with the celestial bodies. In the same way that we can be influenced positively by receiving the money we wanted, we can be influenced by the energy of Jupiter, which is expansion and a feeling of well-being, or with events that weigh us down, or make us feel bad, and in this case, Saturn is the best suited to influence us in that way. So what is the key to living well? Without going into the religious theme, everyone knows the phrase, the 7 years of the good cows and the 7 years of thin, ugly cows. This simple phrase is saying, everything that goes up, must come down. Times of plenty will be followed by times of need. Times of happiness will be followed by times of sadness. This may sound very fatalistic, but it is nothing more than a reality that one can accept, or reject. Nevertheless, beyond that, if we take an honest look at our life, most probably we will find the pattern. Astrology simply indicates the energy cycles through which we travel, but what is the purpose of these cycles? The main purpose of the cycles is to improve ourselves as conscious beings. The cycles repeat in certain periods, which gives us the possibility of traveling some paths more than once. Cycles give us the opportunity to remedy and overcome things that when we first went through, were unknown to us, and most probably took the wrong decisions. You recognize the saying, stumbling over the same stone again? There is nothing new. The natal chart details both the potential and the restrictive aspects of us. Evolution simply talks about eliminating the conditioners or challenging aspects with which we were born. All the positive aspects that we have are the tools at our disposal, to be able to work on our conditioning factors. Nothing is set in stone. If we want to live well, the first thing we have to do is be aware of our limitations, accept them, recognize them and work to overcome them. This will lower the negative energies that we generate, which are been activated through our actions. It is important to understand that everything works when there is balance. Pretending to live all the time in joy, happiness and well-being is a great mistake, and if it is tried, at one point there will be consequences. Remember that, for each moment of euphoria, a moment of sadness follows to balance. We can see this on any sport game, where in the same game we go from the euphoria of winning, to the depression of losing at the end. A sport game lasts a certain time, our game lasts a lifetime. Balance is achieved by working on our feelings, managing the energies that they generate, enjoying every moment of life. Always keeping in mind that, the more energies off balance center we generated, the greater the adjustments we are going to have in the future. Everything naturally tends to level out. Astrology helps us to understand the personal cycles that we live by, and by knowing this, it gives us the possibility to navigate them in the best possible way, taking into account that, although everything is vibration, it is necessary to be in a neutral or balanced state, but without stopping vibrating. It is useless to be in a neutral state, but dead. Our behavior should aim to live in that center of balance, which in no way means not feeling things, since for that, we would have to cancel our five senses and disconnect from the universe. Our consciousness needs to be driver of our life. If our conscience directs our life instead of our astrological DNA marked by the natal chart, we will stop being the winners of our abilities, and the losers of our conditioning factors. Natal characteristics are simply the elements with which we begin our life, in no way do they have to be the same with which we end it. If at the end of our life we end up with the rough state with which we were born, this would simply say that we went through life like a paper boat adrift with the current, without a rudder and without a captain, which we could define as our consciousness. Everything expressed in this article is ancient wisdom that somehow seems to have been forgotten in our days. At certain age, should be our consciousness that dictate every act in our life. There is no excuse for not doing that. Do not let anything or anyone condition your life, even your natal chart, but for that, you will need to have a conscious control on each of your actions.